cook before the next minute. Well, just say I want ice cream. Yes.
Did I join the wrong one? Oh my gosh, I'm so clumsy. I'm sorry. I'll quit as soon as possible.
Wait, no need to be rushed.
Drinking water. Okay. You're live now.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the full council of South Oxfordshire District Council. My name is Andrea Powell, and I will be chairing the meeting this evening. I have a few housekeeping announcements. The evacuation procedure: in the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the staircase opposite, and meet at assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. Officers will assist with any evacuation. Listen to the debate in silence. Mobile phones and laptops. As a modern council, both officers and members will use their electronic devices throughout the meeting. Please, can everyone ensure that their mobile phones and laptops are switched to silent during the meeting? For votes on items, I will initially ask council if the issue can be agreed. I will pause to allow councillors to indicate whether they would like a vote, recorded vote, or to move an alternative. Use of microphones. Before speaking, please tap the base of the microphone until the light turns green and then speak. Can I ask councillors please to speak directly into their microphones so we can all hear what you are saying? Thank you. Okay, so apologies. I have received apologies for absence from councillors Barlow, Robb, Keats Rohan, Councillor Axel MacDonald and Denise MacDonald, Councillor Ruane, Ramsdale, James Lorry, Norman and Hinton. Are there any further apologies? I see none. Thank you. Moving on to minutes. This is to adopt and sign as a correct record the council minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of May 2026, which was circulated earlier today. Anybody have any questions? Or are you proposing that we adopt the minutes? Councillor Gordon-Creed, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Cooper, thank you very much. I will sign minutes. Good. Okay, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this evening? I see none. Thank you. Okay, urgent business and chair's announcements. Members will recall a motion which was proposed by Councillor Snowdon and seconded by Councillor Gavrijac on the 11th of December 2025, which sought support for additional business rates relief for pubs. The motion was passed unanimously by Council. Accordingly, Cabinet then considered and approved the introduction of a local discretionary pub top-up relief scheme. That decision was intended to come to Council for authorisation. However, since the Cabinet meeting, the Revenue and Benefits Manager has established that the total cost to this Council will be below the level at which Council approval is required. So I simply ask Council to note the decision to provide an extra 15% relief in accordance with the decision of Cabinet on the 2nd of July 2026. Thank you. Now, let's move on. We have a very full agenda this evening, and it has been a rather momentous day regarding local government reorganisation. So I hope that we will be able to move through our agenda with efficiency and focus. When we get to motions, I'm going to ask members to speak only if they feel they are adding new information or perspectives to the debate. I'm also going to allow questions to the leader after her report, but we will limit the time allocated to this item to 20 minutes in total, and I hope that the leader will bear this in mind. You manage. So since our last meeting in June, I have attended the 41st Oxfordshire Festival of Voices at Dorchester Abbey, which was a wonderfully joyful occasion involving school choirs from across the district. I also completed my 66-mile Dartmoor Classic bike ride in gold medal time. In aid of my chair's charities, and I would very much like to thank those members who have made generous donations to my crowdfunder. Now, if you haven't, don't worry, because the page will be live throughout my year as chair, and you will have plenty of time to contribute. Next week, I will be attending a blue plaque ceremony in Oxford to recognise the city's first female councillor, Mary Sophia Merivale, who was elected in 1907 when women were first allowed to stand for election. She was elected with an unexpectedly large majority, one of only 6 successful female candidates across England. So I have no other announcements, so we will move on. Now, there is no members of the public, I think, registered to speak to us this evening, and we have received no petitions. No. Okay, thank you. So we move on to agenda item 7, review of political balance. Council is invited to consider the report of the Director of Legal and Democratic. The committee memberships have been provided by the group leaders and are before all members this evening. Are there any questions on the recommendation? Mr. Bennett, would you like to introduce the paper? Would you like to say anything, to add to anything?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly to say, as your introduction suggests, the report really speaks for itself. I'm also very conscious of the fact that there was a report along similar lines at annual council, so I don't think I'm going to add much value if I do say anything too much. But obviously I'm here at your disposal if there are any questions from your members, but hopefully it sounds like there aren't many.
Okay, thank you. So what we need then is a proposer to adopt the recommendations in the paper, and Councillor Philippa-Rivers, I think you're going to propose these changes. Yeah, thank you. And is that seconded? Councillor Cooper, thank you. Is there any debate?
I'll just make a brief point. I mean, this is basically to keep us up to date with current policy and
Next item. That's the next item.
that's the next one. Oh, it's the political balance. Sorry. Right.
Hold that thought. Okay, so if there is no debate, proposer, would you like to sum up?
Oh, I keep on forgetting how to do this. Yeah, so I was peering over this report thinking, what on earth has changed here? It turns out nothing. So effectively, we're still gifting Councillor Snowden a seat on joint scrutiny, which I'm sure he'll appreciate. And effectively, it's just rejigging, just making sure that following Councillor Higgins rejoining us, we are within the law, basically. So no changes whatsoever to what we approved in May. Sorry, just quickly.
Okay, if there's no other comments, then can we agree the recommendations? Okay, thank you. Now then, Councillor Cooper. This is the Constitution Review. Council is invited to consider proposed changes to the Council's constitution as recommended by the Joint Constitution Review Task Group. I invite Nick Bennett, Director of Legal and Democratic, to introduce the report, and then we'll move on to proposing and seconding.
Thank you, Chair. So the Constitution Review Group is well known to you as members. It meets regularly and it continues to work to operate in order to deliver a constitution which is fit for purpose, and specifically to ensure that decisions are made by the right people in the right way and within the law, which is, of course, constantly changing. And the report before you sets out that you have several members, including, and it's a spoiler, but Councillor Cooper is one of them. The main changes here are ones which the review group considered to be fairly straightforward and non-contentious, but I'm sure you'll hear more on that from Councillor Cooper. I draw Councillor's attention, Chair, to firstly Section 6 of the report, which covers that this updates the grant funding processes and removes reference to non-existent grants that have ceased to run. Section 9. This was going to come earlier in the year, but the Constitution Review Group wanted to have a lot of extra information about it from the horse's mouth about how these changes would operate. They were then satisfied that what it now delivers is an acceptable and suitable housing scheme of delegation following some of the legislation change that I touch on in the report. And Section 14 is simply an update to the seal and the way in which we apply the seal. That's important because we use that on any document which is technically a deed, which means it's a promise by the council to do something. It's the most binding thing you can do as a council in legal terms. So it's very important we get that right. It's updating it to the most modern term of wording. It's matching between yourself and Vale as well, so that it also makes it easier and simpler and more transparent for your officers that they're going to do the same thing consistently in the most modern way. Chair, I hope these are non-contentious, but again, I'm here for any questions that you or your committee have.
Thank you. And are there any questions for clarification? No. So I see none. Thank you. So, Councillor Cooper, would you like to propose these recommendations, please?
Yes, I will so propose. And shall I speak now? Yeah. Well, I only want to briefly say, because you've got a comprehensive report here, there are two sections really. One is updating to make sure that what we're doing is in line with what actually happens and not historical data. And the other thing is to make us legally compliant with legislation, in particular with housing. We're now landlords now, and we've had a new renters' rights bill and now Act gone through. So we need to be up to date with that. One warning, this committee will have to meet again in September to considering updates that will be necessary for the new planning legislation. And I think we've all been told that there will be a special meeting of council to ratify those. So it's just a warning of what's coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And to second the recommendations, Councillor Khan?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would. First of all, as Councillor Cooper and Mr. Bennett have said, these are not contentious. These are just making things right and correct. But as Councillor Cooper said, there's going to be a meeting in September, and this is just for. I'm happy to, I want everyone to approve the constitution and the changes that we made, but this is just for the officers for our next constitution meeting agenda. And I want to put this on the agenda if we can, is I would like to put constitutionally that all SODC meetings should be in South Oxfordshire. And that one of the areas that we look at is Didcot. So if you can put that in the agenda in the next meeting, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Constitutionally.
All right. Right. Thank you.
And not Newbury. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Point noted. Would you like to sum up, Councillor Cooper, or should we just, can we all agree these recommendations? Agreed. Thank you. So we now move to the report of the Leader of the Council. Councillor Philippa Rivers, would you like to address the Council?
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. It turns out that actually,
can you
not very clear?
Just
a little bit better?
Just speak a bit more slowly, then you're fine.
A bit more slowly, okay. Actually, I was listening to the JOP hearings online, and actually brilliant online. It's just in the room that is not particularly good. But I will speak slowly. So I have kept it quite light today in terms of the number of items that I want to mention. But I thought it should, given that it's a really momentous day with really big changes coming down the line. But I thought I would briefly address the issue that has rightly attracted quite a lot of attention, both among councillors and on the media. And this is the delay to the launch of our land charges system. So one of the kind of unfortunate things that comes with the territory of being leader is that I have to take full responsibility for the performance of the organisation, whether I have been involved in the day-to-day operational delivery of a particular programme or not. And I want to do just that and to recognise that the delay has caused real frustration to residents, businesses, professionals that rely on the service. And I'm really sorry for the impact that it has had. To date, we have received just under 30 formal and informal complaints. So informal are those that have come through councillors and referred to officers. But if you ask me, that is 30 too many. It's probably fair to say that the implementation of what has turned out to be a really complex IT transition has fallen short of certainly my expectations, but I believe the expectations of all of us, including our officers. So while projects of this scale inevitably present technical and operational challenges, it is important that we seek to understand what happened, what could have been done differently, and what lessons we can learn so that we don't repeat the same mistakes again. So this is exactly what our scrutiny function is there to do. I understand the joint scrutiny are currently discussing. Becky, I'm looking to you whether it's confirmed that it will be on the joint scrutiny agenda, land charges. Has that been confirmed, Nick?
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, the question was, has
Yeah.
it been confirmed that the land charges review?
Yes.
Yes, okay, it has been confirmed.
Yes, it has through you, Chair. It has been confirmed.
Okay. I just wanted to double check.
Just a moment. I've just heard, I think some people are struggling to hear. Maybe you just speak a bit louder. Yeah, because although it does project well, as you say,
I am trying.
in the room, I think you just need to speak a bit louder.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, oh, okay. Hopefully you can hear me now. So, as I said, this is what our scrutiny function is there to do, and that the review and the dissection of what has gone wrong with land charges will be coming to Joint Scrutiny Committee, and I really welcome that. It will provide councillors, all of us, with the opportunity to ask questions, examine the implementation detail, and hear directly from those who have been working really hard and have been responsible for the delivery of this project. I'm pleased to say that the new land charges system has launched. It launched on Monday. It's going okay by all accounts. And so our attention now has to fully be on tackling the backlog. As I understand, that backlog stands at 270. And we have, as an executive, decided to put additional resources in order to ensure that that backlog is cleared within the next 3 to 4 weeks to minimize any further disruption and, of course, any further complaints. So I want to thank Nick. He has been our monitoring officer. He has been trying really hard to respond to questions, but I do hope that we will allow our officers and carve out some time for them to deal with the backlog before we return to joint scrutiny to have a look at this properly. So I will just move on now to local government reorganisation, and I want to recognise that given that we had 3 proposals on the table, there were always going to be people among us within this council, although I'm not sure who supported the Greater Oxfordshire option. I'm looking to Councillor Khan here, can't recall. But it's probably fair to say that the majority of the people in this room will be disappointed with this decision. I am sure officers who have worked very hard on certainly our proposal, which was for two unitary authorities, will likewise feel disappointed and uncertain about what happens next. And just to reassure you, we are working incredibly hard to digest some of the detail in the Oxford City proposal, the Greater Oxford proposal, so that we can understand all the aspects of it and understand whether that aligns completely with government's decision. And it does seem to me certainly that it so far it does. So whilst we do acknowledge that government has made its decision, we really do remain concerned that the chosen model will not achieve the aims that LGR was intended to deliver. At a time when councils are struggling significant financial pressures, creating through 3 unitary authorities risks additional complexity and duplication. I'm particularly disappointed because I felt that we played fairly and that we adhered to government's stated intentions, to the criteria that they published. And yet the proposal that has been approved is one that does not. And we have maintained and highlighted that consistently. What I'm particularly concerned about the rural villages that will now form part of Greater Oxford. We're losing 25 of them. So that is quite a high number of villages. And the sad thing is that Oxford City Council, and in their submission, but also in kind of publicity, have been very clear about their growth ambitions for the Green Belt. And it is high. It is, in fact, one of the reasons they stated that their proposal, though on the smaller side, with the growth that they're planning, housing growth that they're planning, will reach a more viable position. So for those residents there, it will be a really disappointing day as well. So we need to recognise that. But I think it is, for us, though we have this disappointment, it's very important that we maintain momentum in terms of the transition. The most important thing is that these really critical services are safe and legal. But going beyond that, we, of course, want to make the best and try and reimagine, transition the services that are working well and reimagine those that are working less well. So I just want to say to staff, huge thanks for all the work that you have put in. But I'm sad to say that likely even more work is necessary over the coming months to ensure that we can go to shadow elections in a good state. I hope that already officers, and certainly those who are outside SMT, are receiving the right support. I'm sure they will have just as many questions as many of us do. And from us as councillors, I hope that we can reassure them that we'll do our best to communicate openly, fairly, and with respect. So just a very final word of caution is that I was speaking to Councillor Arler just before, and it just reminded me that, you know, in government's eyes, this is going to be the kind of financial solution to all the woes that local government is facing. It will not. Local government and our public services are on their knees. And okay, yes, in all of our 3 respective submissions, we did hope that we'll see some savings. But I think we just need to remain realistic about that prospect and that to continue to advocate for adequate, not only transitional funding, but sustainable funding system that enables councils to protect the services that residents rely upon. So I know you have lots of questions. I will attempt to answer as many of them as I can, but if I can't, we'll take them away and I will get this guy who is going to be the statutory leader from tomorrow to answer them on my behalf.
Thank you. Now I know he'd like to ask.
More than one. I'm slightly confused when you said a minute ago that as a leader you'll have to accept responsibility for day-to-day running and so on. This is actually in your portfolio, the land charges.
Well, no, it crosses 3 portfolios. So the IT part obviously is in Councillor Giles's portfolio. The planning aspect is in planning. It is one of those really, really cross-cutting. I actually feel quite sorry for Nick because he's had to kind of bear the brunt of all the answers, but it has very much been a cross-council programme.
Thank you. So my question is, why should residents have any confidence in the administration's ability to deliver future major transformation projects when one of the council's most important statutory services failed for such a prolonged period? How are we going to rebuild faith? Because
we're willing to learn, and I think that's how we're going to approach it. I mean, I don't think that there is any organisation or any business on God's given earth that mistakes have not happened. I think it is important that we recognise those, that we apologise and try to dissect this and understand what has gone wrong and how we can do better.
So just to clarify, so residents don't elect officers, you know, they elect councillors. As an elected leader and part portfolio holder then, can you tell residents today whether you accept full responsibility for this failure or whether you believe they should instead hold officers or contractors?
I think this is something that we'll find out as part of the dissection and to understand where exactly things have gone wrong. And I think at that point, we can start to really understand. But I have to take full responsibility. Of course I do, which is why I have apologised.
Okay. Councillor Stoney, you finished?
Everyone else a chance. So will the council proactively compensate residents and businesses who can demonstrate that they have suffered financial loss because of these delays, or will the affected residents simply have to be expected to pursue legal claims against the council? Sorry, new leader.
Stop it. This is a legal matter. I will let the monitoring officer answer it. But my understanding is, and feel free, monitoring officer, to correct me, is that in fact that there is compensation for where the results are wrong, but not where there is a delay as part of the legislation. You're nodding, so I'm broadly correct, which is why it was one of the reasons why it was important to ensure that the searches are coming back correctly, because it is there where the council was viable. But I'll let Nick come in.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to respond further. Yeah, what the leader said is correct. To be absolutely clear, the Land Charges Act includes specific elements about making a claim for errors. So if we got it wrong, then there are very clear mechanisms for how that would work, and that's what Parliament wanted, and we will definitely follow that were that to be the case. That's why it's so important that this incredibly complex system that kind of like an octopus has arms that link into every other part of the organisation was right, because if we put out incorrect search answers, then there would definitely be significant claims against us. I absolutely do sympathise for people who've suffered, but the mechanism outside of that would be the normal route through the complaint routes and through the Ombudsman. I have done some research and couldn't locate the local ombudsman's got a register of decisions, so I did quite a lot of research into this. I can't find any examples where other councils who've had delays in land charges searches, and I know of at least 5, have had the Ombudsman make findings of that kind. There has to be a fault found. That's why the scrutiny meeting in the 7th of September is going to be so important, so you can establish as members whether there is fault, what that fault is, and what could have been done right. It's not enough that something has gone wrong. There has to be someone's fault in there. It's how the Ombudsman would look at it, and in extremis if the courts had to look at it. I'm sorry, that's a very long answer, but you're asking quite a detailed question. So, sorry, Chair, if I went on.
Sorry, through you, Chair. Just I've got examples, but I won't go into them. I'll leave them to the scrutiny because it's not. Sorry, I know it's not a scrutiny. That's what you're saying. I'm going to leave that one. But so you've apologised for the disruption, but do you also apologise for the way it was managed and communicated, or do you believe the administration handled the situation appropriately?
I definitely think we could have done better on comms.
Okay, right. I think we should move on. Well, there a question that there was yes. The next point was that there was obviously we've had a very important announcement today. The leaders referred to it and has expressed disappointment, I think probably on our collective behalf on that of the decision made. Are there any questions to the leader on the LGR statement? We have, I see Councillor Bennett, Councillor Rawlins and Councillor Snowden. I'll come back to you, Councillor Snowden. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Leader. I think particularly concerned at the minute are residents, for example, in my ward or Councillor Casey Rare's ward, that will be those that are being moved into Greater Oxford. And I think in particular, in fact, Councillor Powell's ward is being cut in half, so half the residents will end up in Greater Oxford. Obviously, we were expecting the future elections to be on county division boundaries. That's obviously not going to be the case because some of them are cut in half. Is there any indication how?
I'm going to attempt to answer this because I actually looked at this because, as you can imagine, we know our own submission really intimately. So my understanding is that for the Oxford, and I'm going to ask you to take this with a pinch of salt, but I think it's just really interesting. First of all, it's really complex. So for the Ridgeway, we're still on division boundaries. For the Greater Oxford, it will be a mixture of wards and divisions, is my understanding. So, but effectively what we're looking at is for Ridgeway, there will be 88 council seats councillor seats available, whereas there will be 54 for Greater Oxford. So I understand it's a mixture, but do leave that with me, and I'll try and respond as soon as possible.
If I may, just to Chair, so County Councillor Gavin McLaughlin, his division will still be, because it currently includes Dorchester, which is now in Greater Oxford. So it won't, even the original one won't 100% include the existing divisions. So yeah, if you could take it away to try and find out.
So you're talking about the boundary reviews that need to happen as a result of this?
I think there's a lot of
where they're split in partially,
Yes, where they're partially divided,
yeah. So
yeah.
we have been told that there is capacity within the Boundary Commission to do those on time. So they will have to do those reviews in anticipation.
I think what we, in the interest of time, and I think because there's so much detail involved in this whole process that we really don't know yet, what would be useful would be to collect some of those pressing questions, not try to answer them this evening, but identify what those questions might be. And obviously we will be coming back to this issue again, I'm sure. But
I know some of the answers.
Okay, but we haven't got time to go through them all tonight because we've got several motions to get through as well. If I could just ask Mr. Bennett to comment on that last point.
Thank you, Chair. Just to supplement what the leader said, today I've had a first meeting with the elections team officers about doing this work and starting to do this analysis so we can give you actual data. It's just too early. We're meeting again next Tuesday, and we'll continue to keep you in the loop on all of that. We've also had a meeting today with some of the people from other councils. So it's a work in progress, and I'm sorry, I just don't think we're going to be able to help the debate by going into those questions. It's simply not known.
We'll move on quickly, but bear that in mind that we're not entering into lengthy debate this evening. This is a reporter from the leader, questions for clarification, identification of any critical pressing issues that you'd like her to take away and discuss with officers and come back to with further information at a later date. Councillor Rawlins, did you have anything you wanted to raise?
Thank you.
Any questions you want to ask?
When this process began, the government suggested that what we had to look at was local government effectiveness and making sure, in the context of a very big public expenditure problem, that we had councils that were large enough to be financially viable and efficient, but close enough to residents. And a level was set of 500,000 for any given unitary council. Somewhere along the way, that has got blown away across the whole of England. And in every case that I can see, it has been weighted towards the interest of one party.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Was this done honestly in the best interests of community governance?
I will.
Can I call the meeting to order, please?
I can answer.
Leader, would you like to respond?
So look, I think there have been changes in terms of the ministers responsible. So it became quite apparent that what to us certainly started as criteria and requirements became more of guidance as time went on. I think certainly if you look at some of the decisions made under Jim McMahon and later under Alison McGovern, I think certainly there is a change, and I think that does come with every new politician that takes a post. I'm being really generous here, Marky. This is my assessment. This is my assessment. But we certainly approached it in good faith, and we stuck to the criteria. Okay, yes, we did have a trump card in West Berkshire, but generally we came as close as possible to government's criteria in terms of population, in terms of the kind of finances. Indeed, we all had a starting point for the finances, and still the Greater Oxford proposal did come as inferior to the other two. And so, yeah, it feels particularly unfair. And I think to answer Councillor Rawlins' question, I do think that government have done the electoral maths here. I do.
Okay, we have run over the allotted time. I know we have a couple more questions. If you can be very brief, I'll allow you to raise those questions now to be taken away afterwards. Yeah, I think there's Yeah.
No, Chair, I'd strongly recommend actually that
Stop.
your members, we stop at this point. There's been a clear, helpful discussion for public airing of some of these issues. If you want us to, officers can send an email round on behalf of the cabinet to accept all questions, and then we can put them together into a package and pass them to the leader in a, let's say, a week's time, perhaps, something like that.
I think that'd be very helpful. When I think the list. Oh, yes, we have at least started that process tonight. So thank you, Leader, for your forbearance.
Okay, that's how you do it. Anybody hear me? When it goes to joint scrutiny, are we going to use it as a Teams meeting, or would you prefer that councillors go to the joint scrutiny meeting? Anybody wishing to speak?
Yeah. So we're off the top of our heads. We think it'll be a normal in the room meeting, but with the hybrid kind of people can call in and be on the screen as they are today. And with the public being able to watch the conversation and debate. There is, I think I'll leave it there.
Okay. Under agenda item 10 is the Oxfordshire Leaders Joint Committee update. Council is invited to receive the update report included in the papers. Are there any questions relating specifically to the update report? I see none. So can we note the report, Council? Yes, noted. Questions? We have received no questions on notice for this evening's meeting, so we move to motions on notice. There are 4 motions to consider. Motion 1, Inclusive Council Services and EHRC Equality Act Code of Practice. Councillor Casey Rarai, would you like to propose your motion? Thank you. And is that motion seconded?
I believe Councillor Philippa Rivers is seconding.
Councillor Philippa Rivers? Oh, yeah, you're seconding it. Okay. Oh, okay. So just clarify. Okay. So we have a proposer and we have a seconder. Good. So we can move into the motion. Councillor Casey Rarai, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you. I'll propose it. Thank you. So Amnesty International released a report this month called The Growing Threat, the Anti-Rights Movement in the UK, and it's very relevant to what we are talking about today. To understand the rise of the anti-rights movement, it says, targeting the rights of women and LGBT plus people in the UK, it's important to situate it within the broader context of the general deterioration of human rights protections. And the report also notes, and some of you may have seen this somewhere around and reported, that the UK has fallen.
So
from
I'm actually finding it quite hard to hear you. I think it's a case of speaking quite clearly, enunciate as much as you can, and I'm afraid you will have to project your voice on especially from the back of the room over there.
My mum. I'll try that. That's just what my mum used to tell me. So I'll try again. So to understand, the report also notes that the UK has fallen from 1st to 22nd place in the ILGA Europe's annual Rainbow Map assessment. That's for rights for LGBTQ plus people. Key factors contributing to this decline include the treatment of LGBT plus asylum seekers and the implications of the Supreme Court judgment in For Women Scotland Limited versus the Scottish Minister. So that is the context in which the EHRC code has been produced. LGBTQ plus charities and human rights organisations have widely criticised the EHRC code of practice as an erosion of protected characteristics that is likely to increase discrimination and reduce services. It creates a real risk that trans people will be excluded from essential services and public spaces and will be barred from services that they had previously no issues at all accessing. In fact, one person who's been campaigning for better trans rights has said this is kind of humiliating He goes on to say, having this frame of where are people going to pee? It's such a reduction of the problems we have in our lives, like access to healthcare, and also a real day-to-day struggle that we have. But to the motion itself, which addresses only what councils and council contractors are required to do in the light of the code. Our council has a long-standing commitment to equality and inclusion, including resolutions to support trans rights. The motion points to our commitment in, for example, our diversity and inclusion strategy to create diverse and inclusive services for our communities. And I think we all appreciate that council staff have already been working hard to understand how this code affects our services and leisure centres. But the code creates a legal minefield for organisations who are committed to trans inclusion. But it is so important to show residents that we are still committed to inclusion, to equality, and the safety of our trans, non-binary and gender non-conforming residents. The code does make it clear that gender-neutral facilities are acceptable, but it does what no equalities guidance should do, in my opinion, which is to make one protected characteristic, like disability, for example, in a possible conflict with another. And note that gender reassignment remains a protected characteristic under the Equality Act. Having said all of that, of course, I accept that this council has an obligation to comply with the law in its provision of services. The motion makes it clear that we will do all we can within the law to continue to create a safe environment for transgender and non-binary residents, staff, and visitors to access essential services and public spaces. And I'm very pleased to say that this motion was passed unanimously last night in the Vale of the White Horse Council meeting. Of course, we share the staff.
If 30 seconds.
I hope you can all support this motion. Could you understand that? Could you hear that?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Philippa-Rivers, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. So hopefully you can hear me. I'm just going to project in the hope. So, Chair, many of us have come into public service because we deeply care about people. We are here because we are prepared to grapple with the kind of messiness of the human experience, listen, weigh difficult questions, and ultimately try to leave these communities just a little bit better than we found them. So before we debate this motion, why I wanted to speak early on is that I want to ask colleagues to set aside just for a moment the noise that has surrounded this issue. Instead, please imagine that this is your child, your grandchild, your friend, and begin there. Begin just with a little bit of curiosity. One of the saddest losses in public debate, and I had mentioned this in Cabinet the other day as well, is that loss of curiosity. The curiosity that makes us kind of think that actually people live differently, that we can kind of pull us away from the assumptions that we make about how one should live their lives and into what I think is really varied and rich reality of what it means to be human. So too often, this curiosity has been replaced by suspicion. Look around you, everybody that is different, we are suspecting of something, of being a threat, of something to fear. And so I genuinely don't believe that fear is a good place to start when it comes to making public policy. So for many of us, trans experiences are unfamiliar. If you have found yourself feeling uncertain or struggling to understand, don't be too hard on yourself. If you have unintentionally called someone the wrong thing, I'm sure you'd be forgiven. But don't sell yourself too short either. If you can bring yourself to correctly pronounce Councillor Philippa-Rivers or indeed Councillor Casey Rerai several times in a 2-hour meeting, then the sky is the limit. Look, I don't fully understand, and it's not for the lack of trying, what it means to be in the position of a trans person, but we don't really need to understand that in order to to know exactly that the public facilities are exactly that, public. They belong to trans people as much as they do to anybody else in our community. The services we provide are there for every resident, and our duty is to ensure that people can access them with dignity and without the fear of being humiliated. People who already feel humiliated quite a lot of the time. I'm sure none of us want to be a part in causing any more harm. So I actually know of 3 transgender colleagues that I work as part of the day job and one as part of this work. And hand on heart, they're among the kindest, most thoughtful and patient people I know. And I am sure their experiences are partly the result in this. So for me, this is not an abstract political debate. It's about people who I respect and I know. And it really saddens me that what saddens me the most is that they find themselves spoken about as though they're a problem to be managed, or even worse, a threat to be guarded against. That is why I really struggle with aspects of this code, because because of the direction that it could take us in. It doesn't sit easily with the caring and welcoming group of people that I have come to know around this chamber either. And yes, that includes Councillor Arlett. There is a heart in there somewhere. So a lot of this debate has been framed as if there is a really big tension between women's rights and transgender rights. But I cannot help feeling that we have devoted a remarkable amount of political energy to an issue that most women simply do not experience as a defining concern of our lives. Some people argue that allowing transgender women to use women's bathrooms will somehow create a loophole for predators. Seconds. But if you think that, you must also think that there are men out there sitting outside toilets thinking, I really want to assault that woman, but unfortunately, I'm not allowed in there. This is how ridiculous this is. So look, this is about right to basic dignity. It has come to us as a council because we have to audit and review our practices. And so, of course, we will be doing that. And I'm grateful that we're able to have this debate face to face, away from social media, away from headlines, so that we can set a much better tone for it. Okay, I'll stop now.
Thank you. Is there any debate on this motion? Yeah. Councillor Giles.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just speak in my role as Cabinet Member, but onto the motion. So I certainly support the intention behind this motion. It's to ensure trans residents can access council services like any other member of the community, as they should. The Liberal tradition has a long record of pushing equality and human rights, such as extending the franchise to women, Liberal support for decriminalisation of homosexuality, our long-standing support for the Human Rights Act. And we must always be restless and relentless when it comes to protecting human rights. We must champion those who need our support and stand up for them wherever and wherever we can. I'd argue liberalism stands on Mill's harm principle. The only legitimate basis for restricting what someone can do is if it materially harms someone else, not suspicion, not discomfort. And that's the test we should be applying when we make policy decisions about how people live their lives. But maintaining these principles while implementing this EHRC guidance brings practical challenges to the district. As a responsible organisation, we must understand the legal position, audit our facilities, consider the impact on service users, including trans, women and disabled residents, assess the practical implications and costs, and ensure any changes are lawful, proportionate and deliverable. And I'm pleased to say this is exactly what we've already been doing for some considerable time. We've been undertaking the audit of our facilities for a while now, and I've already spoken to officers before this motion was put forward around the costs of compliance, where the government should meet the costs. I would say that this is a piece of national legislation interpreted by a national court, implemented through a national code of practice. Westminster's made this change, this decision, so central government should provide the resources to implement it. Local taxpayers should not be left to foot the bill. And most importantly, we should make sure everyone's treated equally and fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. I see Councillor Snowden.
I wish I would stop writing speeches for every motion. First of all, I've always supported and voted, as Councillor Ray had said, Casey Ray said, most of these were supported unanimously. the bit that confused me a little bit and worried me was the council therefore resolves. You talk about organisations suggesting officers should seek advice. I always think it should be law first. I'm not sure which groups you were referring to, whether they were lobbying groups or trans groups that can give advice and so forth. So I was a bit dubious about that. So I wrote my little speech just because that point concerned me. So this is clearly an issue that people feel deeply about, and I recognise that there are sincerely held views across the chamber and within our communities. I want to be absolutely clear that I believe every resident should be treated with dignity, courtesy and respect. That includes transgender and non-binary residents, just as that includes every other person who relies on our services. Equally, this council has a legal duty to act in accordance with the law. The EHRC Code of Practice is now statutory guidance following the Supreme Court judgment, and our role as a local authority is to ensure that officers implement the law fairly, consistently and professionally. So where I struggle with this motion is that it combines principles I support with statements about code and its effect that I do not believe this council is in a position to determine. I also think our officers should look first and foremost at legal advice and statutory guidance rather than placing them in the middle of what has become a highly polarised national debate. I support the objective of ensuring that everyone accessing council services is treated equally with dignity and respect, and that we do everything we lawfully can to make those services welcoming and inclusive. However, I'm not comfortable endorsing the motion in its current form because I do not believe it strikes the right balance between reassurance and our obligation to remain impartial and grounded in law. For those reasons, I'm minded to abstain until I hear the closing statements. It reflects my view that the council's responsibility is to provide lawful, fair and respectful services to everyone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I see Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief point, and thank you, Councillor Snowden, for the tone of your comments there. I think they were, as I would expect from you, very gentle and fair. So I hope that you will maybe change your mind and support this. Just the reason I think it does highlight one particular protected group is because that group is most severely impacted by this guidance to the extent that they may be excluded from being able to access services altogether. And I think that's, you mentioned organisations. I'm just looking at, for example, Mind, a mental health organisation, highlighting the problems. Lots of types of organisations that don't normally get involved in this debate, but they're just highlighting practical problems, cost implications, and very basic things like that, that this guidance has been rushed and is not well considered. And that is a view held by a really wide variety of organisations. So I do hope, even if you're not going to support the motion, I'm glad to hear that the supportive tone of your comments, and I hope others will support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Simpson.
Yes, I'm taking it, and perhaps the monitoring officer can nod his head, but I take it that this has been through officers, so from the legal aspect, I would have thought it's fine. For me, this comes down to having compassion and humanity, and it's not just about the trans group, but I really appreciate that it is about the trans group this evening. And so for me, I have absolutely no hesitation in supporting this. I think everybody has a right to live with dignity. And as I say, I just, for me, it's quite moving, actually, for when I come in to think of the people that I know who are trans and how they have suffered in the past and currently. So yes, compassion and humanity for all, including the trans people. And thank you for bringing this motion to council.
Thank you. Councillor Heritage.
Sorry. Well, actually, I was going to say something very similar to Councillor Simpson, so I'll keep it very short. But I just wanted to comment because as the Cabinet Member for Communities, I can only say that what has happened as a result of this judgment and guidance has really broken my heart. In my 53, nearly 54 years as a woman, trans people in bathrooms has never been an issue. But here we are. But I cannot support othering people, and I'm really sorry that we even have to discuss this matter. But as Councillor Simpson said, from the point of view of compassion and safety in our communities, safety for all, I'm very happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further debate.
Can I ask a point of clarification? Sorry. Councillor Bennett started mentioning like Mind and that. Is there a list of organisations that I've missed? Is that, did I struggle?
I can ask.
Yeah, Councillor, if you just sum up.
I think the monitoring officer can help give you some further information on that.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So the way that I see this is that at the moment the LGA, Local Government Association Lawyers Group, is carrying out work to link with a variety of the other organisations, I couldn't name them, in order to add detail to their advice to me as a monitoring officer, other monitoring officers around the country, about how to apply the EHRC Code of Practice. And that's why in section 2, I was very comfortable with this, because it says about asking lawyer officers to do all they can do within the law. So I understand the point you're making on clarity, but the lens it will be seen through is the National Local Government Association advice, just to be helpful. No.
Okay, that's okay. All right. I think there's no further debate. So, Councillor Casey Rera, would you like to sum up?
I will, thank you. And I would like to thank Councillor Philippa Rivers for seconding this motion and for the support I've heard. I think just to answer Councillor Snowden about the organisations, we're going to leave that as Mr. Bennett said in relation to the LGA, but also officers are generally well versed in this consulting with groups of people from minority areas. I'm a bit concerned that he used the term lobbying groups. I'm not sure that's the correct term in this context, but I'll just leave that for now. And just one thing, I'd like to echo what Councillor Philippa Rivers said about treating people or a group of people as a problem to be managed. This should never be the case when we're talking about any people, just to go back to sort of basic ethical philosophy, people are ends in themselves, they're not problems to be managed. So, I'll be really grateful for your support in this, and I think it's really important for the council to stand on this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Abstentions? No. 4. Thank you. So I think we have passed that motion. Thank you. Moving on to motion 2. This is tackling excessive vehicle noise pollution in South Oxfordshire. Councillor Sadler, will you be proposing this motion? And is the motion seconded? Councillor Heritage, thank you. Councillor Sadler, would you like to speak to your motion?
Chair, whilst noise is an inevitable consequence of daily life and many activities, it is important to recognise that noise is not merely an environmental issue. It is also a health and quality of life issue. We all accept that some degree of noise is unavoidable. However, the deliberate creation of excessive noise significantly above the ambient level, where it serves no essential purpose, is a different matter altogether. Where excessive noise affects people, wildlife, or domestic animals, it becomes difficult to argue that it is either reasonable or considerate. I think it is also important that we approach this issue with balance. Most motorcyclists and motorists are responsible, considerate, and law-abiding. Many enthusiasts enjoy the distinctive sound and character of their vehicles, and there is nothing inherently wrong with taking pride in a well-maintained machine. However, that freedom is not unlimited. Parliament has already recognised that there is a point at which excessive vehicle noise becomes unacceptable, which is why the law prohibits the use of illegal exhaust modifications and vehicles that exceed permitted noise levels. This motion is not about creating new offences or restricting responsible enthusiasts. It is about shining a light on a problem that many residents experience and calling for for better enforcement of laws that already exist. Context also matters. Although South Oxfordshire is rightly valued for its rural character, it is not sparsely populated. Our towns and villages and homes sit relatively close together, meaning the impact of excessive noise is felt by far more people. What might seem a minor nuisance in one location can become a repeated disturbance where communities are closely connected and residents simply want to enjoy their homes and local environment. The scale of the issue is compounded by frequency. A single noisy vehicle may be an occasional nuisance. However, when significant numbers of vehicles are modified in this way, residents experience repeated disturbance. As one villager recently described to me, on a warm evening with the windows open, a large convoy of motorcycles passed her home. She said, I couldn't be heard shouting to my husband as they passed. Whether or not we share that resident's perspective on motorcycling, I think most of us can recognise that this level of disruption has a genuine impact on daily life. There is also an environmental dimension. Modifying exhaust systems is not solely a question of noise. In many cases, making an exhaust louder can alter the vehicle's emission characteristics, particularly where catalytic converters are removed, bypassed, or where engine management systems are altered. The further a vehicle departs from its type-approved specification, the greater the risk it no longer complies with the noise emission standards under which it was originally approved. The United Kingdom remains closely aligned with European vehicle standards in this area. Motorcycles are sold and operated within the UK continue to be subject to type approval and environmental requirements, while vehicles operating in Northern Ireland remain subject to arrangements linked to the Windsor Framework and associated EU standards. It should therefore be in the interest of riders themselves to have confidence that any modifications they make remain lawful, compliant and suitable for use wherever they travel. Ultimately, this motion is not about imposing unnecessary restrictions on responsible motorists and motorcyclists. It is about recognising that when vehicle noise becomes excessive and unlawful, it has real consequences for the well-being of residents, the enjoyment of our environment and the character of our communities. The legal framework already exists. The responsibility for enforcing it rests with the Thames Valley Police, and this motion seeks neither to duplicate the role nor to create new powers. Rather, it is a call for greater attention to an issue that residents repeatedly raise for the effective use of existing legislation where appropriate. We recognise that Thames Valley Police must balance many competing demands and priorities, and we would welcome the opportunity to work constructively with them and with other partners to improve awareness of this issue, support intelligence gathering, and help achieve outcomes that are proportionate, practical, and effective. At its heart, this motion is about ensuring that everyone can enjoy their homes and local environment without unnecessary disturbance, while supporting fair and consistent enforcement of the laws that are already in place. I therefore commend this motion to the Council.
Thank you. Councillor Heritage, would you like to speak now? Or would you like to reserve your right?
I'll speak now, if that's okay. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to follow Councillor Sadler. I wanted to second this motion anyway because of the complaints that I hear in my area of the relentless antisocial noise pollution problem of gangs tearing up and down our rural roads through the night times. And I actually live in the same village as Councillor Sadler. I can hear the motorbikes regularly, and I do find it a nuisance. But Councillor Sadler and many other residents in our surrounding villages live much closer to the highways most favoured by these gangs. And I know the genuine distress it's causing them night after night. I also now appreciate that this isn't just a problem local to me. It's impacting almost every ward in our district. So lack of sleep can be a serious matter, made worse when the reason for being awoken is a noise that's so painful to the ear that it causes stress. So whether it's working people, parents, children, vulnerable people, everyone is affected by this antisocial behaviour. And I do recognise that this motion isn't about a problem that's completely within the remit of a district council. But antisocial behaviour is a district concern. And I've just lost my line there. I would like to be able to blag it. I do think it's really important that we apply pressure and influence where we can on matters that cause distress to our residents. We need TVP and the PCC to take on board the level of distress that such antisocial behaviour is causing. I did bring this antisocial noise issue up in today's Community Safety Partnership meeting because it is a safety issue, it is an antisocial behaviour issue, and it is a mental health or well-being issue too. I also wrote recently to the Tame Police, to the Tame Police representative, the Tame Neighbourhood Police team, and the response that I received was that they are very aware of the problem. In fact, 3 culprits were identified recently and warnings were issued. However, even though TVP suspects that such incidents are still occurring, the number of reports from the public have declined. So without statistical data to demonstrate the extent of the problem, there's little prospect of getting support in proactive police operations. So he went on to explain that he would encourage members of the community to continue reporting incidents when witnessed, to assist the police in identifying peak times of incidents and hotspot locations so that they can then conduct intelligence-led patrolling, and to demonstrate that the pattern of antisocial behaviour is having a meaningful detrimental impact on the community. So this is part of the reason why we need to raise awareness in the public realm. We need to encourage residents to support the incidents. We need the police to be aware of the distress that it's causing to our communities. But we also need to give TVP to give residents a clear understanding of how to report this nuisance. The online reporting form can be confusing when attempting to report these incidents, and as a result, I think many may be getting lost in the system. So for the sake of everyone in our communities, anyone who's losing sleep over this, let's just put our weight behind asking TVP to put some focus on this problem. Your support can only have a positive impact in protecting the well-being of our communities. So I do hope you'll join me in voting in favour of Councillor Sadler's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heritage. I saw Councillor Khan first.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't hear most of what Councillor Sadler said, but I'm sure he made some really good points. I've got some questions here, and I really want to know: is this really an issue? Is this really? And I hold surgeries, and I've never had anybody come up to me and raise this as an issue. And it's always a telling point when Councillor Heritage said, I know this isn't within the council's remit. That tells me that whether this should be here or not. The other thing is, how will this be, enforced, policed, maintained? And also, I feel some of the comments that were made, both by the proposer and seconder, they were quite dramatic. So, as I say, this seems like we're targeting motorists and we're targeting people with motorbikes. Yes, sometimes they are noisy, but some of the things that was being said was like very dramatic and very over the top. In fact, and I do apologise if some people are severely suffering from that noise, then I do apologise for that. But as I say, it seemed very over dramatic. Personally, I think this feels like a motion for a motion's sake. So I would like to hear Councillor Sadler when he sums up to make those points. Because as I said, I'm sure he's made some very valid points, but at the moment, this seems very dramatic.
Okay. Councillor Philippa-Rivers.
So much for approaching debates with curiosity, huh? So it is an issue.
I just asked, what does that actually mean?
It means not to assume that your perspective is the only perspective, and to actually try and interrogate and try to understand.
Can we let Councillor Philippa-Rivers make her comments, please?
Yeah, to try to understand each other. So clearly this may be more of a rural issue, maybe not, but certainly it is it is an issue in my division, in my county division, specifically around Woodcote. We have off-road illegal bikes that are making a lot of noise. There's all sorts of other issues with it. So I would certainly think that that is a bit of a hotspot. And it's very interesting. Just a couple of days ago, I had yet another inquiry about this and what we can do. And I was able to say, actually, we're going to try and put some pressure on TVP. This is already the law. It is already legal. So all we want to do is raise some awareness about how people can report this so that then TVP can take targeted action. I'm under no illusion that they have the resources to enforce absolutely everywhere all the time. But the motion actually asks for some really practical things that can be done in order to alleviate the challenge where there are issues. And perhaps that is not your ward, but let us not dismiss it. And certainly let us not call each other dramatic.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me clearly? I want to address a couple of the things that Councillor Mocky raised, Councillor Khan raised. Fact. So it's a fact that in our rural area, the noise pollution and the speed issue go together. They're not separate. And TVP has known for 30 years that there's an issue. However, there's guidance that essentially sets the tone to abrogate any responsibility and guidance in the form of we can't collect data of people going, and they are gangs and they are known gangs gathering at the bottom of a hill and going up the hill at 90 miles an hour, because you're not allowed to gather data on a road that is set at a speed more than 40 miles an hour. So they don't speed on the roads that are 40 miles an hour. They do, but not at such volume and such numbers. So you cannot submit data currently under guidance policies to flag that there's an issue. The other thing that flags an issue is accidents and death rates. And the shortest area, the road with the highest kill rate and accident rate for the shortest distance is this area. And TVP went, oh, where did you get that data? Well, the data's available. So there's an abrogation of responsibility that is been 30 years in situ that I think needs to be pushed. The speeding that happens and the volume that happens and the accidents that happen are fact. They're just fact. But at the moment, there's an incapacity to be able to submit that data. So the practical solutions are, one, make the road 40 miles an hour so data can be collected, allow proper devolution and let the parish councils install their own speed cameras and get the revenue from them, because currently there is no incentive for cameras because the revenue goes to central government, so the police are just not interested. Also a fact, we just had a meeting with the TVP liaison man who came to the meeting with this attitude. I've been doing this for 20 years and the answer to every question you're going to ask is no. Quote. That is not good enough for this particular issue. They need to be pushed, and it's our job to push them. So this is, when you're in your town, you don't have this issue. When you're in the rural countryside, the noise carries far further. There's far more risk. It also, by the way, affects the natural environment because birds and insects get affected by sound and they don't breed. Not that we really are meant to care about that, but I personally do. Thank you.
Councillor Giles.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. Just to say, firstly, thank you to Councillor Sadler for bringing this important motion forward. I think many of us, obviously not particularly those in Didcot possibly, but those around the countryside can really appreciate what you're trying to do with this motion. I think we're all grateful and thankful for that. Just briefly though, what I think the real issue is here is that the Police and Crime Commissioner, Matthew Barber, is spending more time zooming around Didcot and Wantage rather than actually doing his actual job as Police and Crime Commissioner. And he's really now in the passenger seat as the PCC rather than actually being in the driving seat, which is what he's trying to do, zooming around Didcot and Wantage looking for new jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tinsley.
Well, here's a coincidence. 2 years ago, I was on the Police and Crime panel as South Oxfordshire's representative, and I raised this issue with Matthew Barber. The problem then was there were several car parks around the district which were being used for what the police refer to as peacocking when they're having drag meets and things like that. And I asked him about this and what the police were doing about it and had a similar dismissive reply. So I'd really just like to say, could we actually get on to Mr. Barber and ask him what he's done in those intervening 2 years, because the problem has not gone away. And also there must be a basic issue, as you've touched on, in enforcement of insurance after modifications. And these are things that are all well within the police's gift. And I did try to report this myself online 2 years ago, and it was similarly, frankly, the whole system is one of obfuscation and preventing accurate reporting. So absolutely, Councillor Giles, I'm with you on that one. Is somebody asleep at the wheel here?
You finished? Right, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just briefly, to reassure Councillor Khan, this is probably the #1 issue I get written to about, and not from the usual suspects. As you know, I have H Cafe in the middle of my ward, which is probably the #1 meeting place for perfectly legitimate bike meets, which is great. But there are a small number of people that cause a lot of the issue. I mean, here's a text from a resident I just dug out. It's 9:47, bikes racing up and down, revving engines over 107 decibels in my back garden. This resident has a decibel meter. Exposure to above 85 decibels is considered harmful on a persistent basis. And these meets happen every single Monday throughout summer. So, in exactly the same place. So if you live near there, this is actually a harmful issue. And this resident said he complained to the police. They say they're dealing with it. That was, this text was on August 2024. He did say they've also complained to the council and they say it's a police matter, which is rubbish. He says noise is a council issue. And of course, noise is a council issue through environmental health. So maybe there is, if there's more that we can do about it as a council, then I welcome that attempt, even if it might be limited. And so I thank Councillor Sadler for bringing the motion. And I can say, Councillor Khan, Councillor Sadler's speech was excellent, very fair, and well referenced.
Right, I can see hands shooting up already. Remember what I said at the beginning, please. We do have 2 more motions to get through tonight, and I know everybody feels very passionately about this issue in our ward as well. Councillor Cooper and I hear these complaints very regularly. Councillor Rawlins, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have tests, we have requirements for motorbikes and vehicles when they go in for their MOT for a reason. If then people change those settings and modify their vehicle after that test, it's clearly a willful act and it's clearly a harmful one. In my ward, between Reading and Henley runs the A4155, which is regularly used for TT style motorbike races late at night, which scare the hell out of local residents when they're seeking to drive, and it causes them great disturbance just from the noise for those of them who live nearby that road. And I can tell you that my parishes have had any number of complaints, and they have made any number of submissions to Thames Valley Police without a damn thing being done. And just as a suggestion, if we're going to write to Thames Valley Police, perhaps all of us as councillors could submit nominated roads in our particular wards that have problems with this matter, so that the very busy, as we've heard, Police and Crime Commissioner can perhaps zero in on the areas where there is a problem. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take two more speakers. I'm going to take Councillor Gavrijac and Councillor Snowden, and then we'll move on to the vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed, for bringing this motion. You're right, it is a real and living problem. In Henley, the Fair Mile is often incredibly noisy because motorbikes open up and burn off. But we've also got to seek practical solutions as well. If there are noises in a particular area, then you've got to get alongside your local police, Thames Valley, your support officers, and actually say it is happening in this area. A few years ago, a lot of residents were actually saying to me there's a lot of drugs dealing going on behind the youth club in Henley. And I went to the police and I said there's a lot of drug dealing going on behind the youth centre in Henley. And they said, yeah, that was why I said it was a while ago. And they said, yeah, we know it's going on. So I said, well, why aren't you doing something about it? And from that, they actually did do something about it. I would also ask all of us, Ed included, I've just Googled here, are there cameras with acoustic monitoring? Here we go. Yes, the UK has developed an active trialling noise camera that combines directional microphones, video camera and automatic number plate recognition. So if it is happening regularly in your area, we should be maybe SODC money. We should be buying one of these operations so that it can be ported around the county to sort it out. As far as motorbike exhausts are concerned, Lee, you're right. When they go for an MOT, of course, their silencer is absolutely compliant. And as soon as they walk out the door, they take the exhaust off. So all I would say is it is a real issue. But we've also got to actively get the police into the area to sort it out. And I hear you when you're saying, well, they don't respond. Well, I'm sorry, that's our job as elected councillors to make them respond. And also ask Thames Valley Police whether one of these trials, active trials are backed by the Department of Transport, taking place in Bradford, Birmingham, Bristol, Great Yarmouth, and specific London boroughs, Kensington, Chelsea, Westminster, and they've now moved to permanent monitoring as well. So technology does the work and automatically sends the fines out. Job done. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Snowden, please.
Thank you very much. Right. I'm not going to read my speech anymore. I'm not sure if Councillor Tinsley, is he put through an amendment because he made a point saying that we should be asking the PCC what he's been doing for the last 2 years. Was that an amendment or is that just a?
I think that was just a comment in debate.
Okay, gotcha. I'm surprised that Councillor Tinsley didn't shoot down Councillor Khan actually, because Lady Grove has a huge issue with this. And as ward councillor, I'm surprised you didn't know about it. So that's a bit difficult. But anyway, I'm also a bit concerned that we've got a cabinet member whose antisocial behaviour falls into it. Could they not have written to Thames Valley Police? And do we not have anyone on the police and crime panel that could have raised this as an issue? I'm not quite sure. Me personally, that's great. So this is going over. Well, we're doing it again. But anyway, as a councillor, when I have issues, when residents write to me, I put pressure on, and I do what I can. You might know that sometimes I do Facebook posts, and they seem to get a good reaction. So I fear that whilst I support this motion because I think it's good, and I know there's a real bad problem. Councillor Tinsley, you can come to my house any time and listen to it in the evenings when they race by. So I will support it, but I just hope it's not one of these motions for comms to go out to highlight somebody. All right, so I will support it. So thank you for bringing the motion, and let's hope we get some results from it.
Thank you, Councillor Snowden. And of course, we would never dream of doing comms in that nature, would we? So shall we move on to a debate? To a vote. Can we? Sorry, right to reply? Oh, sorry, yes, but quick right to reply and then we'll sum up.
I'm well aware of the issues in Didcot. David Ruane is not here today.
And I'm sure he would tell you he's well aware as well. And I'm sure it's something you'll welcome our collaboration on in talking to Matthew Barber, because
thank you.
We can't find him.
Thank you. So back to the proposer to sum up your motion.
Chair, yes, I would like to sum up the motion. I'm hoping that you can hear me okay. And I'm aware of the fact that it seems to me there's a lot of vibration in the speaker system, and I think that's what makes it difficult to hear personally. But I'll try to sum up if I can. Firstly, I just want to address Councillor Khan's points, because I think he made some very good points about no reports, no problem, no powers to do anything, over-exaggerated. I wasn't sure whether it was my speech that was over-exaggerated, because I felt it was quite measured, but perhaps not. Maybe you feel the issue is over-exaggerated, or my speech. I'm not sure, but I think my speech was fairly measured and fairly well thought through. I'll come on to why in just a moment. And there's a couple of other things. Stefan said also that he's had a quick Google search as well, and there's these noise cameras, and you're absolutely right. I did the same Google search, but in actual fact, a lot of those are not actually validated in the UK yet. So they're working on it, and it might prove to be effective, but I think it needs to be in the context of background noise. And the reason I say that is because a car under European standards, a car post 2026, July 2026, so now basically, has to be less than 68 decibels in its background noise, and that's down from 72 decibels where it's actually been for quite some number of years. And if you go back to the 80s, they're in the 80 decibels, that sort of area. So what they're doing is they're gradually ramping that down. But of course, in order to have a noise camera in a given location, you have to bear in mind other noises as well. So if you had a chainsaw, for example, which is 170 decibels or something like that, that would automatically just drown out the base load of noise would be far too much for those noise cameras to cope with. So that's one of those things. Also, cooperate with the police. Councillor Gavachak said as well. We have been trying to cooperate with the police. Now, there's reporting mechanisms via the police, but it is hard work to do this. You have to raise an antisocial behaviour order on the TVP website. After you've got past telling them who you are, what sex you are, how you want to be referred to, and so on, you then finally get to the report where you actually put the details in. And bearing in mind, if you're in bed at 1 a.m. and you hear someone go past, actually all you know is time, and that is a crucial piece of evidence. But I got a letter back from the Thames Valley Police very politely saying, we can't do anything because you haven't got any evidence. Now, evidence was something that Councillor Gordon-Creed referred to, where under GDPR regs, you're not entitled to go around gathering evidence just randomly as you feel like. You can do things by smartphone, you can do things by dash cam and so forth. But, bearing in mind, if you're in bed at 1 a.m. and you hear loud convoys of motorbikes, I don't think this is hard for the police to track this behaviour down and deal with it. So really, just to sum up, if I can, I mean, crucially, it comes down to two main points, really. More awareness, because the law is there already. We're not asking to create new laws. The law is there already. So we want more awareness for the public generally, because I don't think punitive action is the right way to go. I think awareness is the way to go. And you only use punitive action when people don't have any, when they're in contempt of the law, effectively. So I think that's the first thing.
30 seconds, please.
And the second thing, really, and crucially, is better reporting tools. And really that sits with TVP. So I think there's a long way to go. And I heard the thing about the council has responsibilities in this area as well. And, you know, maybe there's something the council can do in terms of reporting tools. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council, can we agree this motion? I think we can. Okay, I think we've got enough to pass that motion. Yes, thank you. Right, well, we'll move on. Councillor Bearder was going to propose, but I believe Councillor Morgan, you're going to be proposing this motion. So this is building better places, supporting community-led design codes for South Oxfordshire. So Councillor Morgan, you will be proposing the motion. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Philip Over-Rivers, thank you. Councillor Morgan, please, would you go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll keep it very brief because I was just a seconding originally. Our communities are all very different. We have beautiful Riverside in Henley, Wallingford and Goring. We have beautiful villages of all shapes and sizes. And we have Didcot, where everybody who actually does the work in our community lives and does the hard work. It is beautiful, but it's where we do the work for everyone else. Regardless of which of these communities you live in, everyone deserves excellence. The detailed design of our communities is vital to ensuring that everyone's life experience is as good as it can be. It's not the same, but it's as good as it can be. The right house or the right apartment, the right school, the right shops, the right community centre, the right bus service, the right social facilities, the right care facilities. All of this originates from getting the local plan right in the first place and getting the design in terms of how we deliver that plan right in the first place. So I'm keeping this very, very brief. I was very, very interested when Councillor Bearder approached me about getting the designs right a while ago. The motion tells towns and parishes what support we can offer to them. It also has a small financial element to say this is what we can actually afford to spend on this, or it puts that into motion, and Councillor Barker will report on that in due course. So let's influence as much as we can about the future. Unfortunately, this government doesn't trust local people to make planning decisions by having meetings in the open. It doesn't trust local people to deliver the right local government reorganisation because it does what was organised in the Labour Party conference, not what was decided as the right thing. So let's actually do the things we can do for our communities. Let's get the right design code. Let people make the right decisions about how their communities can look, which will be different in many of our communities. But I'd ask people to support the motion and let's move this forward so we can actually deliver for our communities in the new planning process, which will be in place in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Walden. I could ask to remind members just to listen to the debate. Councillor,
I'll speak now. I haven't actually prepared much, but I was just looking at our Director of Finance, reading the motion, presumably because you were afraid that we had already committed the council to spending lots of money on the communities. But fear not, it is for Cabinet to consider as part of budget setting or before, if at all possible. Yeah, ultimately, we know that planning laws have changed significantly. I think the hardest one for our communities is likely to be the change in the national scheme of delegations. This is where effectively we believe about 90% of planning applications will no longer be decided in a public forum where councillors themselves can make the decision, people that they have elected can make the decisions. Instead, those decisions will be made by our officers, and as diligent as they are, I genuinely believe that we could empower them with additional tools to know what developments and how we, in our distinctive settlements communities, how we want to see development happen, how we want to see those communities change, or rather change very little. So this is what this is about. It's trying to mitigate a little bit some of these changes that will be received as a loss by our communities, and to make sure that we kind of try and influence those decisions by influencing the local policies and frameworks that we set, on the basis of which our planners will make decisions on behalf of us and our communities. So that's it.
Thank you. Would anybody? Yep, Councillor Simpson, please.
Thank you. As members will know, we have a dedicated planning team in South Oxfordshire and Vale Whitehorse, and we're very fortunate for that. So members paying attention at the beginning of the year will have found out that we launched a series of templates for neighbourhood planning and to help neighbourhood planning groups start new plans or review their plans. And there's a whole suite of them on our website, and they are very useful. So we've paid for those. They are work in progress. And I'm very pleased to say that one of them includes design codes. I was really, really pleasantly surprised with the final draft of this motion, because basically it does give a boost to our neighbourhood plans and neighbourhood planning groups, our neighbourhood planning team. Very welcomed. We have 56 neighbourhood plans in South Oxfordshire. Together with Vale, we make up 70% of all neighbourhood plans across the whole of Oxfordshire. So we really are leading the way with our neighbourhood planning, because we recognise the importance of our parishes and our neighbourhood planning groups being able to shape development in their area, to really influence at that level within the existing planning framework, which allows for it. So within, under the National Planning Policy Framework, under our local plans. It's really important. We should still encourage them. They do have impact, they do have effect, and they do have material consideration in determining planning applications. They do form part of our development plan. So I really do welcome this. I welcome any additional resources that eventually might get put this way. And thank you if you support this. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much. I will be supporting this motion. With all the developments we've got coming across South Oxfordshire planned and those approved on appeal because the administration's failings with a 5-year land supply, or even close to one. And residents rightly expect it to be well designed, reflect the character of our towns and villages, and create places people are proud to live in. Giving communities greater voice early in the planning process is a positive step. However, good design on paper is only half the job, and I hope this administration learns from their many, many mistakes it's already made. In Didcot, as an example, Great Western Park, beautiful on the master plan, fantastic conditions put in place, but as we know, it's been fully completed now for years. And one of the things they would have loved is things like allotments and so forth. But of course, we've been far too weak in enforcing those rules. So wonderful plans and resident engagement means nothing if developers are allowed to ignore these time and time again. There is and good planning must be matched by strong enforcement and confidence to hold the developers to account. So if this motion helps us move in that direction, then I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Arlett.
I can't believe what's in front of us, Chairman. At the end of the day, we've got neighbourhood plans, we've got local policies, and we've got national policies. We've got excellent planning officers. Councillor Bretherton may remind me, I think in the last year or so over at on planning meetings, I think we've gone against one planning officer on one decision. The rest have all gone with the planning officer. It's all in there. We don't need this extra rubbish here. It's all there. They're all local policies. They're all in there, and this is what the officers, base their decisions on. So I won't be supporting this because it's already there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arlett. I see Councillor Gordon-Creed, please.
I wasn't going to say anything, but when I first read the motion, as someone who recently removed herself from planning, but who still sits on licensing, I think this motion speaks to what, for me, is the support for residents in the face of what is becoming, to my mind, more and more iniquitous planning policy in favour of residents. That the basic policy that planning is built on, which is meant to be 3 pillars that are economic, environment and social. and the flavour of applying the policy and the way it's moving is really only economic going forwards now. So this to me is a heartfelt attempt to bolster something that is less and less it is not. I disagree with Councillor Arlett. It's not in place. Current policy separates infrastructure and the needs of community with regards to roads, with regards to schools, GP places, sewage issues. It separates those issues in planning policy from the beginning, so infrastructure from rules, material grounds for refusing. So this speaks to me as what Councillor Filipova Rivers originally said, is that this is a council with heart, and we're attempting to communicate to residents, you know, we're trying to still support your needs in the face of what to my mind is more iniquitous policy coming down the line with regards to planning. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlins.
Thank you, Chair. I'm supporting this, and I think it's really important, and I'll explain why. We've heard quite a lot tonight about the dictatorship policies coming down from Westminster, the abolition of planning committees and all the rest of it, but there's more. They are going, and they have provided legislation to enable the Secretary of State to set a national development management scheme which will strike down local policies and not allow policies which are in conflict with their one-size-fits-all national policies. And actually, there is a scope, there is a vital scope, I think, for these design codes, because the government are supportive and for some time have been supportive of design codes to give developers fair opportunity to understand what it is that is acceptable in an area. And this is particularly local. It particularly defines what local character actually is. So I think that this is actually not just valid and relevant, but actually is going to become so much more important in the new regime that's coming. So I would urge you to support this.
Thank you. And Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I understand, I will be supporting this, but I do understand Councillor Arlett's frustration, because a lot of the things on this motion the Labour government is already doing and providing. And I just want to highlight to everybody, you know, Labour's Pride in Place initiative, and so that's really about making our area better and communities better. So it's, you know, we got this and we're trying to make things better, but without the government, there wouldn't be £5 billion coming into communities.
Okay, I think we'll draw that debate to a close there. I will go back to the proposer of the motion, Councillor Morgan, to sum up, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Khan always makes me laugh. Tries to pretend that Labour are doing something, but no mention of the £25 million that Labour have removed from our communities or stolen from our pockets here in Oxfordshire. Councillor Gordon-Creed and Councillor Rawlins made essentially the same point about that the national government are doing this to us. They don't actually care what we think. They don't trust us as a community. And I think the word Councillor Gordon-Creed used was iniquitous. And I think that's a very, very sensible word. Councillor Snowden made the point quite rightly that enforcement is key. Absolutely right. 100% agree with that, Councillor Snowden. And Councillor Simpson, I highlighted the excellent work our planning teams are already doing. We have fantastic planning teams. We have lots and lots of communities who engage with it and whatever. And lastly, Councillor Arlett's point said it's already there. Well, it was already there on Thomas Tuchel's team sheet last night, but it didn't quite work out, did it? So, no, I don't quite accept that, Councillor Arlett. It's about giving our communities the empowerment to do what they want and supporting that with resource to enable it can happen. And that's why I think it's the right thing to do for this council and for the future, and getting these plans in place that will supersede this council. So please support the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council, can we I think we have a clear majority there, so thank you very much. And we move to the final motion of the evening. We're playing motion catch-up, I think, this evening. This is a motion to be proposed by Councillor Bennett on heat waves and cool spaces. Councillor Bennett, do you have a seconder for your motion? Councillor Heritage, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heritage.
Would you like to introduce your motion?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. And I won't keep everyone too long. I think the motion is self-explanatory in the introduction. I think when I wrote the motion, I thought we'd be looking back at the heat wave and reflecting on it, but of course, still going, and looks like it's going to be going for a while yet. And I think we've often in the past years talked about retrofit and adaptation. We've generally been thinking about keeping homes warm or worrying about flooding, but I think these past couple of years have shown that our own experience is that we're woefully underprepared for this level of heat in our infrastructure, in our homes, in workplaces. There's Green MPs in Parliament proposing legislation around maximum workplace temperatures. We have no legislation around that in the UK. And that is actually becoming a real problem. And I think we have underestimated the impact of heat. It doesn't just go up in a straight line. Our response to heat, at certain temperatures, you've probably all experienced it, we start to shut down and we actually can't manage at all. And in a really harsh light, in May and June 2026, we had 2,700 excess deaths as a really blunt statistic of the impact of that heat. It's going to be one of the biggest public health issues that we have. And a report from the University of Manchester last month said millions of social homes in the UK are unprepared for heat. We should prioritise cooling, ventilation, prevention of overheating. Obviously, we're limited in what we can do on that, so I've included something around the work our housing team already does with registered providers. I live in an ex-Soho house and it is extremely hot upstairs. And I'm sure that's the case in many of our registered providers' properties, and it would be good at least to talk to them about what they're doing, what they know about it at the moment. Similarly, the Climate Change Committee set as its, again, this month, set as the #1 adaptation priority, risks to the lives of vulnerable people from extreme heat. And there's some more general things that we can do. We did put out some heat guidance online, which was fun. There was no problem with that, but it didn't really. The fact is, I saw people posting on social media groups, where can I go that is cool? Apart from branches of Costa and the odd church, there were actually relatively few places that people can go just to cool down. And even the sort of traditional climate denier comments about, well, I remember the heat wave of 1976. I'm sure some of you maybe even do. In fact, Councillor Joseph Turner remembers it. One of my colleagues was doing their A-levels in 1976, and it was very hot. But at night, it went down to 15 degrees in Oxfordshire, whereas in the recent heat wave, it often didn't go below 25, even sometimes more than that, and never went below that. So people have no way of cooling down. So actually, if we, as a council, can influence provision of places people can go for a couple of hours to cool down, whether that be some of our cultural spaces and community centres or some of the other bodies that we work with, without incurring massive expenditure, which I know we don't have, I think that could be really valuable as well, in addition to just providing advice. So, and I mentioned the group Julie's Bicycle have this Cool Off in Culture programme. So, if we're, I know we're overhauling Cornerstone at the moment, but maybe we'll be able in the future, that could be a cool space people could go, for example. And it's not just older people, it's also school children, younger people. Some of my children spend a lot of time roaming around Didcot and there's nowhere cool to go. The skate park is not that cool, temperature-wise. So there are some things we can do. Obviously, we can't do everything. So I hope you'll support the thrust of this motion. And I just wanted to put this on the agenda for the council so that we can all think about collectively what we can do. So thank you, and thanks to Councillor Heritage for seconding.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Heritage, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Yes, I will speak. And thank you, Councillor Bennett, for bringing this motion to us. I'm really pleased that we've developed quite a communities themed to our motions this evening. But as councillors, that's what we're here for, isn't it? To support our residents, not just to survive, but to thrive. And that's why I want to second this very sensible motion. It's really easy to recognise the need for cool spaces when we're enduring a heat wave. In a couple of weeks, the weather pattern may change, and we might have torrential rain or and cooler weather. And it's easy to forget about the very real struggle that many of our residents face in hot weather. And have been facing for the last few weeks. It's really difficult, as Councillor Bennett referred to, it's difficult for us to function properly, physically and mentally, when our body is working so hard just to regulate temperature. And it's so much harder for more vulnerable groups of people. In fact, it's life-threatening. So it's really important that we address this now while everyone can fully appreciate and actually feel the need for it. Because as we know, we are at a crisis point in climate change. This isn't going to go away. I fear for the future of the babies who were born into my family this year. And we know that tackling climate change the crisis is vital at every level, from an international scale right through to local authority action. But as councillors, we also have a responsibility to ensure our residents are safe and cared for and receive the same safeguarding measures in extreme hot weather that we offer in extreme cold weather. So an obvious way to do this must surely be to encourage cool space areas and to accelerate the work we do on climate adaptation wherever we can. And I just want to take the opportunity, as I'm speaking, to mention that this council, as we know, is very fortunate to be able to offer several grant schemes to support climate adaptation in our communities. And I hope all of us already share this information widely with our community groups. It would be great if there were enough cool heritage buildings in our district to offer respite to the heat, to everybody who needs it, without ever having to consider air conditioning. But since we don't have this supply, I think it's important for us to be aware that air conditioning can be supported in our grant schemes where it benefits the health and well-being of wider groups in community spaces. It is a very nuanced area, but for example, air conditioning can be part of a wider approach to seek to decarbonise buildings and install renewable energy systems. We can also consider that air-to-air heat pumps, which produce hot and cold air, would be considered favourably in a grant application. So there are ways we can help already, and we need to encourage more of this. The grants team is incredibly helpful in answering questions, so please encourage your community groups to contact them for advice on projects like this. But the crux of the matter is, and I'll say it again, we are already in a climate crisis. The well-being of our communities is already negatively impacted. I'm determined to support anything and everything more that we can do to address this priority as a council. And I implore you to join me in supporting Councillor Bennett's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heritage. I see Councillor Topping, Councillor Tinsley and Councillor Turner. Thank you.
Hi. Strikes me that there's a lot of tie-ups between this motion and the last one. If you get the design codes right, not just for the buildings, but also for the outside space. I was hearing this week that properly designed outdoor spaces using, for instance, trees and other methods to reduce the amount of space outside that is in direct sunlight can reduce temperatures by 5 to 10%. So I do think that how we handle this one should very much be tied up with the last motion on design codes. And we shouldn't forget that outdoor spaces are as important often as indoor spaces. And if you can keep people out of direct sunlight, that can make a huge difference. Obviously, trees are an obvious way of providing shade, but there are lots of other ways you can use those don't know how to describe them, but you can use like sails externally within outdoor spaces that can provide shade and obviously other methods. But yeah, that's my point.
Thank you. And thank you very much for raising this motion. One of which I will, of course, be actively supporting as now co-chair of the Joint Climate and Nature Advisory Committee. I will be dedicating some time in the next meeting to this. I appreciate you're not on the committee anymore, but we've got Councillor Norman, rather, sorry, from the Greens there, and obviously I'll liaise directly there. Passive cooling is incredibly important. And just before anybody gets too excited, it's my 500th odd use of this bottle. So before you comment on it being a Fiji bottle, great rugby team, that's why. Anyway, we have our Nature and Climate Action Plan within the district. There are several areas that address this, but they could be beefed up slightly. There is the ONZ5. Operation Net 05 looks at energy efficiency and air source heat pumps, and it'd be good to actually put in heating and cooling systems in that, so that the air source heat pump is recognised both a heating source and a cooling source. On CA1, climate adaptation, we do talk about support to communities. And one of the things I'm very keen on, and I've already spoken extensively with officers, is what support we can provide to parishes so that they can upgrade their buildings in terms of batteries. We've seen even in the last couple of weeks, if anybody's had to travel on the Elizabeth line, electrical outages that have prevented the trains running because it's the wrong kind of sun or something. But also, we talk about Climate Adaptation 3, which is the partnerships we have as council with people. So I have to say, slightly on a personal note, and also as a resident of an estate which has a large amount of Sohar housing on it, I don't find Sohar to be a particularly listening organisation, and I would love the opportunity to actively engage with them on this and pass on some personal and possibly professional advice there. So thank you very much for raising it again. I very much support it and hope we can discuss it more. Thank you very much.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. In my village, the local church has opened its buildings, which are at least the main churches, with such thick walls produce a very cool environment. Those of us who 15 to 20 years and even further ago warned of this impending disaster, do you remember the sort of attitude there was to us? At best, it was smiles at us. They smiled at what we were saying, and at worst, some were downright rude. And the one which stands out to me most of all is what our current King Charles III, 15 to 20 years ago, was warning of this impending disaster. And what did the national written media do? They branded him a crackpot. I've not seen any of them apologise for what they did then, because they influenced a lot of people. Not to take it all seriously, but now here we are. So I think there are some ways in this motion which I'll support, and thank you for bringing it to council.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Yes, I'd like to thank Councillor Topping for referring back to the motion on design codes, because it gives me another opportunity to point out just how strong South Oxfordshire is on neighbourhood planning. One of our templates, not the one which is under construction for design codes, but another one of our existing templates that's on the website is actually climate change guidance. So we also have one on nature recovery and biodiversity guidance, but particularly that climate change guidance I wanted to mention in this context, because I think it's important to show the direction that we are already travelling in, and I fully support this motion because we do need to do more as we do everywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philippa-Rivers.
Yeah,
Mike.
Okay, I don't know why it turned itself off, but anyway, I know that whenever we start talking about climate change, so I just want to remind everyone that it has been really difficult to manage these heat waves. We still haven't got the data in terms of excess deaths, but I can bet my life on it that there will be some. And I think that is how we need to approach it, and with the seriousness that it deserves. I also wanted to mention that as a mum, I'm sure, or grandparents or whatever, you've noticed that most schools had to close because they're just not suitable for, not just for learning. Genuinely, my daughter's school were playing water fights all day just for them to be able to stay there. And so you can imagine that they miss out, their children that have exams. So we're completely ill-equipped to manage this. And of course, when schools close, that has an economic impact because parents have to take leave, etc., etc. So productivity is impacted. So I just wanted to put it a little bit into context that, you know, that actually this means something. This means something about to lives and livelihoods. And I think we need to be doing all that we can. I have lots more ideas. I was quite tempted to add a few more bullet points to the motion, but I thought in the interest of time, probably shouldn't. But thank you, and we'll be very happy to collaborate on it as well.
Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Topping's point about bringing the two together. We very recently co-opted a car park for the day. We co-opted a car park in Tame for the day, and we provided gazebos and trees, and for local businesses and local organisations to just be there with chairs, with drinks, and with shade. And the feedback that we got from the population passing through, especially the elderly people, was how wonderful it was to have a place to sit down in the shade. And so the putting together planning design codes along with cool spaces, both indoor and outdoor. Playgrounds are in full sun, skate parks, full sun. So these outdoor places that are for children currently are unusable currently in the temperatures. So it's you know, I encourage us to think outside the box a little bit more in terms of simple things that we can do on this issue that doesn't silo things so much, you know, that we are a bit more inclusive with our thinking, which I think we are as a council, but I think there is more that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have Councillor Snowdon.
Go with full house. Okay. Which is a point to Councillor Turner. I thought you were going to give us your memories of 1976 as well. Just but anyway, Chair, I will be supporting this motion because protecting vulnerable residents during periods of extreme heat is a sensible objective. And there is a role for this council in working with partners, making residents aware of the support already available. My only note of caution is that we should be clear about what sits within the council's responsibility and what sits with the NHS, housing providers and other agencies. We also need to be mindful of the financial pressures. We may not, Councillor Heritage mentioned that we've got money for grants and so forth, but we still need to make it proportionate and good use of existing community facilities before creating new initiatives. I chair the scrutiny at the County Council and the administration there are proposing to take away telecare and funding towards transportation for disabled residents. So perhaps they should apply for one of your grants, Councillor Heritage, to help them. And of course, we've got good funding because this council was previously very well run. See what I did there. I don't agree. If this motion leads to a practical, cost-effective measures and support of vulnerable residents without placing unrealistic demands on the council, then I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
I see no other hands, so I will go back to Councillor Bennett, please, to sum up.
Thank you, everyone, for the comments and great examples and ideas. Thank you for the support. I mean, I think it's one of these things. We could look elsewhere in the government sphere for what is already being done. I'm just looking at something published by Parliament, the Parliamentary Library on the 10th of July. Is the UK prepared for heat waves? It says there is no single overarching plan to adapt to heat waves or increase resilience to extreme heat. And the government's Environmental Audit Committee has called for a national cooling plan, which is expected to be produced by the end of 2026. So that's not going to help us now. So any action we can take, I'm sure will be welcomed. However ad hoc it might even appear, like putting up gazebos in a town square. And I look forward, the motion mainly asks Cabinet to produce some viable ideas. So I look forward to Councillor Philipova Rivers. I fluffed your name. After all these years, to an extensive list, a very extensive list of ideas at a forthcoming Cabinet meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Council, can we approve this motion? Agreed. I think that's overwhelmingly agreed. So thank you very much. Full house for all of us, not just Councillor Snowden. So on a very hot summer's evening, I think we can now call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alaro. Please, can you stop the broadcast?